Hello everybody and welcome to this exciting video we've got today. I'm Badgerlord and we're going to be going over the picks for the Sword and Shield draft league that we've got going on. First off, we've got Raging Asian and he has first pick Tyranitar. Now this is a great Pokemon to choose. It's very versatile. You can do things like Dragon Dance. You can put a choice band on it, choice scarf on it. You can even do like a Chople Berry or a leftovers. Make it kind of like an offensive rock setter. You can also splash in like a Fire Blast or something along those lines to have it be like a mix sweeper of sorts. Very versatile Pokemon. Gives them the option to even set up for later with the sand for maybe a Sand Rusher. Pretty much anything along those lines. The Sandstorm that Tyranitar creates is going to give a boost to the special defense of all rock types by 1.5, so it pretty much gets a free Assault Vest for just coming in. The other option is if he decides to go with an Unnerved Tyranitar. It would be a little cheeky, but if he sees that one of his opponents is continuing to use berries on certain mons, then it could be a decent option for him. Next up, Raging Asian chose Ferrothorn as his second pick. This one is really and truly one of the best tanks in the game. It's got Stealth Rocks, Spikes, Toxic, T-Wave, Power Whip, Gyro Ball. It's got a lot of different options that people are looking for. It is 4 times weak to fire, but in maybe one of his later picks he can get something to offset that. That being said, Tyranitar and Ferrothorn are both weak to fighting. Ferrothorn probably doesn't worry about it too much just because it is a little bit bulkier than Tyranitar, especially on the defensive side. Normal set is probably going to be Stealth Rocks, Leech Seed, Gyro Ball, and then probably Thunder Wave or Toxic. Physically or specially defensive, you can choose whichever way. More than likely going to have a Leftovers or a Rocky Helmet. For third pick, Raging Agent has Togekiss. Now this is a great option. As we said before, he does have the fighting weakness. 4 times on Tyranitar, 2 times on Ferrothorn. Togekiss 4 times resisted though, with the Fairy and Flying typing. It did lose Defog this gen, so that is a little bit of annoying, but it does have the pesky Thunder Wave plus Air Slash combo. If you haven't seen this, you Thunder Wave your opponent, there's a chance that they can become paralyzed. It's going to lower their speed by half, and the Air Slash has a chance to flinch, combined with the Serene Grace from Togekiss. Means that your opponent has a really small chance of being able to break through that. Alongside that, it is fairly bulky, so even if they are able to hit you, there's not a huge chance that it's going to OHKO unless they are either like a setup sweeper or something with just a huge physical or special attack stat using a move that is strong against Togekiss. Past that, I believe it has Wish, Tailwind maybe. I think that most often, though, it's probably going to be like the Nasty Plot sweeper, so it could be a cool one to come in. I'm interested. Next up, we have the Frostmoth. This one's really interesting. It is 4 times weak to rock, 4 times weak to fire. It does have the ability Ice Scales, though, so it halves the amount of damage that it takes from any special attack. It's going to want to set up Quiver Dance to be able to do anything. It does have Defog, but that's kind of going to take away from what you're trying to do with the sweeping set. Past Quiver Dance, I believe it has Ice Beam, Bug Buzz, things of that nature. It doesn't have a great amount of coverage, unfortunately, but if you can get a couple Quiver Dances up, it can definitely put some work in. Now that being said, with it being 4 times weak to rock, what I believe to be the best option is to stick a heavy duty boots on it, just to ensure that it doesn't get hit by those, because that's going to be half of its health, like right off the bat. Next up, for 5th pick, Raging Asian has Noivern. This is great for his speed tier. Really and truly, most people put like a choice specs on it. It's already very fast. Past that, I guess you could go like a choice scarf if you're bringing it just to outspeed another fast sweeper, and you're fearing them maybe putting a scarf on, or if you outspeed with a scarf but not normally, or something like that. Something like Draco Meteor, U-Turn, Hurricane. It does have Defog, but it's kind of like the Frostmoth. It's going to take away from the kit, unfortunately. 4 times weak to Ice. He doesn't have a whole bunch blocking that, unless the Frostmoth is like specially defensive or some kind of niche set like that. I'd be a little confused if Noivern and Frostmoth were both on the same team, but I could see it. Next up, Raging Asian picked the Runerigus. This one's great. It's ground and ghost type, so it's going to keep from people doing volt switches. It's going to keep from people setting up with rapid spins, which got boosted up to 50 base power and gives you 1 stage of speed whenever it hits. Besides that, it's got Stealth Rocks, it has Will-O-Wisp, really a great defensive stat, it has a good physical attack stat. It's going to be interesting to see. I've played around with it for a little bit, and to be honest, I've been very impressed with it. I know it doesn't have the greatest typing with all of the ghost types running around. It does take those pretty poorly. But if you can bring it in on something that is maybe spamming like a normal attack, or if he's scared of a volt switch coming out, it's going to make a great pivot. Next up, 7th pick, Raging Asian has Golisopod. Now, since his only really speed control guy is Noivern, Golisopod has quite a few priority moves. So it's got First Impression, it has Sucker Punch, it has Aqua Jet. Really great move pool. Its stats, it's pretty bulky naturally. Very high attack stat. So you could even put like a band on it and then just rely on the priority attacks. Maybe put like an Assault Vest. It does have the emergency exit. So maybe if you want to get multiple triggers of that in a game, you could put one of the healing berries on him. Yeah, I would think Assault Vest and Choice Band are going to be the most popular that he uses. Next up, Raging Asian has Indeedee. So it comes in, it has the Psychic Surge, which if you use the Terrain Extender, is going to prevent priority attacks from happening for an increased amount of time. With the Golisopod pick, it's a little bit of anti-synergy, but I mean, I think Indeedee would be great if you can do like a setup Tyranitar combined with it, or maybe even with the Frostmoth. Could be very cool. It does have screens, so that works well with that also. It's not too exciting, kind of a low-end pick, but could be good for him. Next up, we got a spicy one in Phalanx. It has the No Retreat, and it has quite a few coverage moves past that. It is monotype fighting, which is okay. For his team, it doesn't really provide a whole bunch unless he just needs the extra setup sweeper. Yeah, and in my testing, I found Phalanx to be a little difficult to use just because of once you set up with it, you're not getting out of it. So you got to get at least a 2-for-1 for it to be worth it, it feels. It is pretty bulky, and then with the +1 to all stats, it can put in some work. But really getting it to start going is the big problem with the Pokemon. Next up, or last off, Raging Asian has picked Drillbur as his 10th and final pick. If he combines it with the Tyranitar, he's got the Sand Rush. He's pretty quick. Not the bulkiest thing, but an Eviolite should be pretty good for him. Alternatively, he can put like a Choice Band or maybe a Life Orb if he decides to pretty much use it as an Excadrill with Swords Dance. It has Rapid Spin, Stealth Rocks, Earthquake. It doesn't have the Iron Head that Excadrill does, which is a bit of a problem, but I believe it has Poison Jab maybe, so it can get past the Fairy types. Very neat last pick, I think. Got to use up his points on something that actually is relevant for him. Next up, we have Baloo, who first picked the Dracovish. It's a great one to be able to build a team around. It's got the Vicious Rend. It's not super fast, but you can stick a Scarf on it. You can use Sticky Webs, Tailwind. Yeah, I mean, it's a solid pick. It's definitely going to be something that people have to look at when they're building a team against him. Other than the Vicious Rend, it also has a bunch of other coverage moves, which will be boosted by the Strong Jaw. Crunch, I believe Psychic Fangs, has the Elemental Fangs as well. I'm pretty sure it has all of them. I know it has Ice Fang for sure. But yeah, Dracovish is going to be a difficult one for people to play against. Next up, Baloo chose Hatterene. This one's interesting to combine with the Dracovish because when you see these two together, you're going to think Trick Room. It will basically automatically give the Dracovish like pseudo priority. You've got the kind of slow speed of Dracovish. Give it like a Brave Nature 0 IVs and speed. And yeah, that's a solid combo there if he decides to go Trick Room. Other than that, Hatterene is very solid on its own. It has the magic bounce, so it can come in on sticky webs, come in on stealth rocks, will-o-wisp, T-wave, and it'll send it back at the opponent instead. So it's a really annoying ability to try to get around. And if you're playing against a Dracovish, one of the ways that people can see to beat it is get a sticky webs up. You don't have to worry about getting hit by the double damage Vicious Rend. So that's pretty good on its own. Other than that, Hatterene has a huge special attack and special defense. It's really slow, which works well with the Trick Room again. It has the coverage moves of Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, Mystical Fire. Yeah, a really solid Pokemon. I like the pick. Next up, Baloo has the Toxapex, one of the strongest walls in the OU tier, currently in competitive. Toxic, Recover, Scald, and Haze, I believe, is the normal set, usually physically defensive. It's got a decent health. It's got strong defensive and special defensive stats. It doesn't do much for the Trick Room, but I could see it still. It's got Toxic Spikes, so it could be an additional setter for him. Other than that, you could go like Baneful Bunker, get poison off on your opponent, but it's not a great option from what I can see now. And just having the Toxic is way more valuable than poison, normal poison. Other than that, it does have Regenerator, one of the few Pokemons in the game now that has that ability, so that's going to be a huge one in being able to set up getting the Dracovish out. Next up, he has the Galvantula. Like we were talking about before, if he goes Voltron for the Dracovish, he can get his own webs up. He can Volt Switch out after that, get the Dracovish right in if he wants to, and then Vicious Rend and claim his kills. Galvantula has Compound Eyes, which means that he can basically get a Thunder off. I could see Galvantula on his team probably just being the lead version with a Focus Sash. Other than that, it can go Choice Specs. I'm not really aware of any other sets that it normally plays, but I think that those two are going to be the most used. Baloo's fifth pick is the Sirfetch'd. It's new Pokemon for this game. Mono fighting type, so it's a decent typing, I guess. Fighting, not the highest on a priority list, but it's a good, if you have to have a solid, like a single pick, fighting is probably up there. It has Swords Dance. It's got Defog, Knockoff, Close Combat, I believe, Brave Bird. Not sure much else after that, but it's slow also, so if he does do the Trick Room with Hatterene, then that can work with that. I'm not saying that he's going Trick Room for sure, but from looking at his picks, most of his guys are kind of in the middle on the speed, so you can definitely fit a Trick Room in there. Besides that, it's got Scrappy, so you can spam the Close Combat. Don't have to worry about any Ghost type getting in the way, stopping that. It could be good. I'm not fully sold on it yet, but I mean, I'm interested to see what it'll do. His sixth pick is Pangoro. You know, not my favorite. It's dark fighting typing, so 4 times weak to Fairy, which is not great. I guess the Toxapex will cover the weakness there. Pangoro, I know it has Parting Shot. That's probably the largest upside to it. It's fairly bulky in itself. It is slow also, so Trick Room again, what I'm thinking. But yeah, Parting Shot will be huge for Dracovish also. Make your opponent want to switch, then they get hit with the sticky webs, and you land the Vicious Rend. And even something that's resisted by it is still going to take the normal damage because of the double boost that it gets. Next up, Crawdaunt. I believe it is the strongest knockoff in the game. It's got adaptability, strengthen the dark and water type attacks. If you put a choice band on it, you can spam Liquidation, Aqua Jet, knockoff, I guess Superpower? Not sure if it gained Close Combat this gen, but it's got a wide variety of coverage there, and the priority looks pretty important because I'm not seeing any other on this team yet. Unless Pangoro gains Mach Punch or Bullet Punch. I think it might actually. But yeah, I think it's a solid pick. I mean, if he were to even lead with that, like a choice band knockoff, like nobody's going to want to take that. My one comment though is that the Dracovish and Crawdaunt seem to fill the same role. Not too sure if he's going to bring both of them on the same team ever. And they both have the water typing, so they have similar weaknesses. Other than that, he could do like a Life Orb, Dragon Dance. Not too sure how that's going to play out, but it's another option, so good to think about. Baloo's 8th pick is the Golurk, Ghost and Ground typing. As we said before with the Renarigus from Raging Asian. It's a good typing to have. It keeps your opponent from just volt switching on you, stops rapid spin. Yeah, solid. It has Stealth Rocks. Past that, I believe the ability that people use is Iron Fist. I'm not really sure what other ones it has. Looks like it has a decent amount of coverage, although it looks like it's probably just going to be like a bulky setter set for majority of the games. Next up is the Rotom Mow. Most of the time, Rotom Mow is going to be Choice Scarfed, Volt Switch, Leaf Storm, Trick, and then either Thunderbolt or Shadow Ball or Will-O-Wisp. One of those. Besides that, I guess you could go like a bulky set, although the typing is not quite as good as like a Rotom Wash would be, only being weak to grass. Yeah, Levitate's good. Stops an Earthquake spam from something without Mold Breaker. Volt Switch again, it'll get in the Dracovish. So I think Rotom Mow is a pretty good one. It's got the nice speed tier too, so I like the pick. I think it'll definitely be seen on most of Baloo's games. The final pick for Baloo is the Cramorant, Water Flying type, new to this game. It has the ability Gulp Missile, so whenever it uses Dive or Surf, it gets something in its mouth, and whenever it's hit with a contact move, I believe, maybe it's all moves, but it'll send out some extra damage, so it's almost like a aftermath effect. I don't love the pick, although it does give Baloo an additional defog option. It does not have U-turn, has Roost. I guess you could play like a Specs variant, Scarf maybe even. I'm not sure about its speed tier, but past that, maybe like a bulky set. I know it's not huge on defense or special defense, though, so it's kind of an odd one, but with the points he was given, it was probably one of the better ones he could have picked. Alright, the next player we're covering is Possum, and his first pick is Dragapult. I'm sure many people that play competitive know how huge this thing can be in the meta. Like, I mean, you can do so many things with it. You can do like a Dragon Dance Life Orb, you can do Choice Specs, Choice Band, you can go Choice Scarf and be faster than just about everything in the game, aside from like a Celeborn or something like that doesn't do anything. Yeah, Dragapult, there's no way that he doesn't bring this on every single team. He can switch out like whatever he wants to do with it. It can be physical or special, so it's going to be a real difficult choice for people going against him, is determining what the Dragapult is. Yeah, that's excellent first pick for sure. Next up on the list, Possum chooses the Galarian Weezing. It has the unique ability of neutralizing gas, stops other Pokemon's abilities. It has two other abilities that are good. It has the Misty Surge. Not a whole bunch you can really do with it, but it stops statuses, which kind of goes against the Weezing, because a lot of times they'll run either Toxic Spikes, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, things like that, and it kind of is almost like an anti-synergy with its like ability, but still a good one, and it could just be a part attacker or something like that. Finally, it does have the Levitate, so it can get rid of one of its weaknesses. It has Defog, Aromatherapy, Pain Split, a bunch of different statuses. It's a good defensive core for sure. Lots of options as well, so Dragapult with Galarian Weezing is going to be a nice little combo. Moving on, his third pick is Grimmsnarl. And what can you say? He's bulky. He's got a large attack stat. I think it has pretty good defenses. It is Dark Fairy. Very good typing. With the Prankster, it lets you set up screens. You can be like a bulk up sub variant. You can be an attacker, just straight up. Yeah, I don't see him bringing too many things other than the Prankster. I think its other ability that's at all useful is Frisk. So you get to see what your opponent's holding, but really and truly the Prankster is kind of what sets him over the edge. Possum's fourth choice is Silvally. Again, we see that he's really going for versatility. Silvally has the RKS system. Whatever disc you put on it, it becomes that type. Its signature move, multi-attack, got buffed up to a 120 base. So with stab, it's going to be 180, I believe. I think a 1.5 boost for stab bonus. Yeah, so really, when he's going against somebody and he sees that there's a certain weakness on their team, he can slap that type disc onto the Silvally and really just be fine running like Parting Shot, multi-attack, one of the Elemental Fangs if he so chooses. Or alternatively, he can do something with the normal type one. Just go Swords Dance with a life orb, something like that, or you can even put a choice item on it. Really cool option. Don't know if he brings it every game, but it is a good little way to kind of get some additional offensive pressure. His 5th choice is the Milotic. With the ability Marvel Scale, it'll increase its defense when it has a status on it. Combine that with a Flame Orb, it's honestly a huge defensive presence. Gonna be something to think about. Its move pool is not the greatest. I think most notably it's like Scald, Ice Beam, Recover Haze, something along the lines of there. If he's playing against somebody that he knows has sticky webs, he can bring the Competitive, which is whenever it has a stat lowered, it gains 2 stages of special attack, so it can be a pretty big threat against people. Possum's 6th pick is Shuckle. Good lead. Usually they're running a Mental Herb, I believe. Stop him from being taunted, just so you can get up the sticky webs and the stealth rocks. It has Sturdy, so it's not going to be one shot. It has, I believe they might be the largest defenses in the game, defensively and specially. I mean, it's a lead Pokemon. There's not a whole bunch of things you can do with it. Definitely when somebody's playing against Possum, they're going to have to think like, alright, there's going to be sticky webs up. What can I do about that? Which I think is kind of great because if he chooses to not bring Shuckle, your opponent is kind of planning for the sticky webs, which might mess up a strategy or so. Possum's 7th choice is Flareon. So it's very slow. It has a good attack stat. It has a good HP stat, I believe, as well. I mean, it's a fire attacker. Really not too much to say about it. You can run the Flash Fire as kind of like a more defensive set, or you can run a Guts with a Toxic Orb and then proceed to click Facade and Flare Blitz, things like that. Not great. It's only fire type, so a lot of things definitely will take him on pretty easily. But if he sees somebody's team is weak to fire and he doesn't want to bring Savali, then, or he can bring both of them, then I mean Flareon can put in some work. Possum's 8th pick is Ditto. I mean, there's really only one set to talk about, which is pretty much Ditto's only set. It's the Choice Scarf with Imposter ability. So it'll come in, it'll be a copy of your opponent's Pokemon, including all of their stat changes. So if somebody has a setup Mon, you can sack something, get in Ditto. You've got all those stat boost as well as a Choice Scarf. So it'll be a great way to not lose to any setup sweepers. Yeah, I mean, you can just throw it on a team and it should do something. Not a whole bunch there, but it is a good one to think about. Possum's 9th pick is Pyukumuku. In the past, this has been one of Possum's signature Pokemon. I guess now with the discovered Soak Toxic, you can poison the Steel types, which I guess had a problem with the Pyukumuku. It's very similar to Shuckle. It has the large defensive stats, not a whole bunch of HP. Not sure what else this thing really does. I guess if somebody doesn't have a way to break water, then Pyukumuku will be the way that he goes with it. Finally, Possum's last choice is the Swirlix. This thing also has sticky webs, so it's a little bit redundant with Shuckle. Definitely not going to bring both of them on the same team ever. It is fairy typing, so it could pose a threat to anybody that has a choice dragon type or something that is using a dragon attack. I believe it has Wish. Besides that, I'm not sure what he does with it. It doesn't have good stats, and you're pretty much going to be stuck running Eviolite on it. It'll be interesting to see if he brings it ever. I think ultimately, though, it was down to that he had very little points, and that was what he wanted. So, not too much there. Burrboy is the next player we're going to cover here. His first pick is Gyarados. With the Dynamax Gigantamax not being allowed in here, the Moxie Max Airstream Sweeper is not going to be a thing, luckily, because that was a big threat when it was running around on the ladder. Here, though, Gyarados is still a big threat. He's got Dragon Dance, he's got Waterfall, the option of using either Moxie or Intimidate. There's very little Intimidate Mons in the game, so it'll be good to see if he opts for that option ever. Decently bulky. Its typing is pretty good. Water and Flying means it's weak to Electric by 4 times, which is not great, so he's going to have to cover that option. It's a great setup sweeper. Maybe you could choice it in some way, but yeah, most notably it's going to be a Dragon Dance sweeper. Burrboy's second pick is Galarian Corsola. This one was really a surprise when it started getting big in OU. Eviolite with it makes it a massive tank. It's got great defenses. It's got a good health. Has Strength Sap, Will-O-Wisp, Nightshade, and Stealth Rocks. So it can kind of just like fit into a team. Nice little rocker there. Very hard to break. Even with something that's dealing super effective damage, it usually doesn't take it out. He does have to watch out for a knockoff because it will severely reduce its ability to tank. Next up, Burrboy chose Appleton as his third pick. Grass Dragon typing, so there's another 4 times weakness that he has to watch out for in ice. Right now he doesn't have any way to deal with ice on his team, but Appleton will 4 times resist electric, 4 times resist grass, and 4 times resist water. The only thing is that 4 times weakness to ice, but again, if he can manage it, then he should be alright. Now, aside from that, it has a signature attack, Apple Acid. It's a grass special attack, which will reduce your opponent's special defense by 1 stage. You can kind of just get something that's a wall in front. You can spam Apple Acid a couple times, and then their defenses are going to be so low that it kind of forces a switch out by them. Besides that, it has Leech Seed, has Draco Meteor, kind of a single set. I haven't seen too many of the things with the berries, but if he maybe wants to test something out with that, then it could be interesting. For our 4th pick, Burrboy chose Cinderace. It has 2 signature moves. It has Pyro Ball, physical fire attack, 10% chance to burn, and it also has Court Change, which will switch entry hazards, any kind of veils, Light Terrain, Reflect, or Veil. It's interesting. It's very fast. It hits really hard. When you are building a team against Burrboy, definitely be looking out for this Cinderace, because pretty safe to assume that he can bring it in pretty much any match and be safe. Next up, Burrboy chooses Clefable. Now this one is great. It has Magic Guard, so it's not going to be getting hurt by rocks. It's not going to be getting hurt by Toxic. Nothing like that. It has Moonblast, a large special attack, and stab with that. So people are going to have to think about Fairy when they're bringing a team here. It's slow, so people can tech on the poison steel attack to try to fight it. It's bulky though, so people have to really watch out for some kind of set like that. Most of the time, Clefables are going to be Moonblast, either Moonlight or Calm Mind, or a combination of both. I'm not sure if it has Wish this gen. It does have Stealth Rocks also, but he has the option between Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, so it covers pretty much everything in the game. Definitely being able to kill Clefable is something to look out for. For a 6th pick, Burrboy chose Goon. Even though he's not in OU, I think that he is a pretty big favor, especially by me. He's the Badger of the game. 3 great abilities. It has Reckless, has Guts, and it has Defiant. Most of the time there's going to be Parting Shot on it. It has a signature move, Obstruct, which is when it gets hit with a contact move, or it prevents any damage like Protect, but if he's hit with a physical move, it reduces their defense by a stage, which will lead into probably a knockoff, Sod if it's a Guts variant, or like a double edge for Reckless, or if you're going for like a Defiant sweep. Great Mon, but again, this is another 4 times weakness that he has in the fighting. Trying to balance these out is going to be difficult in the team building process for him. Next up, Burrboy has Steelix. It's a stealth rocker, steel typing, which is great. It has Sturdy. I mean, it's got decent typing. So, it does have, I believe, one of the highest defenses in the game. So you can almost do like a curse body press or something like that. Maybe a heavy slam or iron head. So it should be interesting. Not sure how many times he's going to bring it, but again, he just has to watch out for those 4 times weaknesses that he has, so Steelix will definitely be able to help him out. Burrboy has Colossal as his 8th pick. 4 times weak to water. I believe 4 times weak to ground as well. It does have Steam Engine, so if it gets hit with a fire or water attack, its speed will be maxed out, so up to +6 if he is not slowed. I believe that if he is slowed, though, it'll bump him up 7 stages or however many he had lost. Maybe if he can tech that in against somebody who maybe has like a fire type attacker as the primary sweeper, then maybe Colossal could get in and tank the hit, then set up his own sweep from there. Aside from that, it does have Rapid Spin, which is very interesting. So he doesn't have to rely on the Cinderace doing the court change. He can bring Colossal and Rapid Spin, and hope that doesn't get hit with one of the 4 times weak moves. Next up, Burrboy has Galarian Rapidash. So far, all I've seen is like a Swords Dance variant from it, and then just coverage moves. It's fairly quick. It's not the fastest, but I don't think that Burrboy really needs to worry about it. He has the Cinderace as a good speed control, and his other guys aren't terribly slow, so I think it's decent. I don't think he would bring it very often. It has some wonky typing. It's an interesting one for sure. Finally, Burrboy's 10th pick is Riolu. Given that he had the minimal amount of points, I think Riolu is pretty cool. It has Prankster, so it can do, I believe the most notable thing is like Sub, then Roar, and then you spam Copycat, and that will make Roar a priority move. It's a little cheesy, but it is a 10-pointer that you can actually use, and if you're going against him, maybe you have to think about, like, what do I have to do to stop from just getting Roar cheesed? Pretty cool. BigPoppaJojo is our next player on the list. First pick, he goes for the Excadrill. This guy is great. He's got Mold Breaker, Sand Rush. He has Sand Force as well, but that's probably not going to be seen as often. With the Mold Breaker, you can get Stealth Rocks up past something that has Magic Bounce. You can Earthquake things that have Levitate. It has good stats. You can do like a Choice Band, you can do a Choice Scarf, you can do a Life Orb, you can do a bulky one with Leftovers. Most notably, there's the Focus Sash Lead, Stealth Rocks, Rapid Spin, Earthquake, Iron Head. Great first pickup. Next up, BigPoppaJojo has Gengar. So it can be a Scarfer, it can be a Specs user, it can be a Life Orb, it can be Black Sludge, you can go Sash. It got Nasty Plot this gen, which is great because now you can set up a sub, hit Nasty Plot, a good speed tier, so pretty much anything that's not a sweeper is going to have to try to find a way to get past him. It's not good against Dragapult for the most part just because of the Infiltrator. Things with sound-based moves are going to go through the sub as well. I mean, if you're not going for a setup Gengar, then it's going to be kind of hard to deal with. The setup one is most notable, I think. So yeah, Excadrill and Gengar, both weak to ground. That is covered by BigPoppaJojo's third pick in Mandibuzz. Dark and Flying type, so it has immunity to Psychic as well as Ground, which is very big this gen. It's bulky on physical side, most notably, but also on the special side, so you can really swap what kind of tank you want it to be. It has Defog, it has U-Turn, it has Roost, Foul Play, Knockoff, might have Tailwind as well. So far, looking at his team, his guys are fairly fast. Yeah, great wall. Covers his pick so far too. Next up is Wobbuffet. This was one of BigPoppaJojo's favorites back in the past. Very sad when Shadow Tag had gotten banned, but here we've got it open for him. Wobbuffet, there's the one set counter, the special version of counter. It's got Destiny Bond and Safeguard. So that's gonna be it. Next up is the Hippowdon. So this one is great. It opens up the Sand Rush options for Excadrill. It means that the Excadrill won't have to be his rocker because you got the rocks on Hippowdon. Quake, Slack Off. He did lose Toxic this gen. He can no longer really stall out opponents, but he is a great phaser. Somebody sets up in front of you, just hit the Whirlwind, boom, all of a sudden something else is in front. Has great defenses, mainly on the physical side. It's got a good attack stat. Not too many ways for it to abuse it though, because it is monotype ground. So Earthquake is more than likely going to be the only attack that you bring most weeks. For 6th pick, he chose Charizard, 4 times weak to rock, very notable with Stealth Rocks, but there is the heavy duty boots now. You have a couple options with it. You can go special, so it'll be Scarf or Specs, things like Fire Blast, Air Slash, Dragon Pulse. Not really sure what else it has from there, but I'm sure it has like a Focus Blast or something along those lines. On the other option, if you go physical, you have Dragon Dance and Belly Drub as setups. Gonna be hard to set up. He doesn't have great physical attack. His speed is not amazing, but after a Dragon Dance, then he will outspeed a lot of things. Next up, BigPoppaJojo's 7th pick is Hitmonchan. Again, it's another option to pick over Excadrill as a spinner. Although, if I had to say that the Excadrill is probably going to bring Rapid Spin almost every time, just for that additional speed boost now. Hitmonchan has all of the elemental punches. It has priority in Bullet Punch and Mach Punch, I believe. It has a good special defense stat, and it has a good physical attack. HP is decent. Speed is a little bit low. It could be cool to use as an item, maybe like a Life Orb, so you can do priority and then do a prediction with one of the elemental punches. You could go like a band. Either go for the priority attack to take care of the thing in front of you that's low, or hit close combat and that should hurt something that comes in. Not my favorite pick. Again, it is another option for a spinner. For an 8th pick, we have Jolteon here. So Jolteon, unfortunately, is, even though I believe he is faster than Dragapult, he might not be. I think he's actually slower. His special attack stat is not high enough to really do much with all the speed that it has. Now, an option he can do if he's not wanting to run Volt Absorb, he's got 2 immunities already, so Volt Absorb might not be what he goes with. It does have the Quick Feet, so when it has a status, its speed gets a 1.5 times multiplication, so you can do like a pseudo bulky Jolteon, it's still not going to be tanky enough to take very many hits. Is it worth it? I'm not sure. It's almost like putting a Scarf but being able to switch up moves. Not sure if Jolteon is going to be used very often. You might even just put a Specs on it to be a revenge killer. Not too much more to say on that though. Next up, BigPoppaJojo chose Basculin. The joke for Basculin is that it's the dollar store version of Barraskewda. It has adaptability, which is very nice, so it's going to hit hard with Liquidation and Aqua Jet. Past that, it has Elemental Fang attacks, Crunch. It almost does the same thing as Barraskewda, but no Swift Swim, and its attacks aren't quite as strong, I don't believe, even with adaptability. It might be, but it's going to play pretty much the same role on other people's teams as Barraskewda would. So it's going to be a Choice Band, it could be a Life Orb, or it could be a Choice Scarf. Past that, I don't see it doing anything. I mean, it is a water type for his team. Not that it really matters, it's not very bulky, so unless he really needs that water type attack to take down some things, I don't see him bringing it often. Next up is the Quillfish. Like we said before, there's not many things with Intimidate in the game, but Quillfish does have it. It's got decent bulk, it's not great. Has the ability to run like Black Sludge, though. Has a good attack stat. Toxic Spikes, Haze, Aqua Jet, things like that. So it has a couple of options to be a setter, like a pseudo support / phaser. It could be interesting. I don't think many people are going to have to worry about it too much when building a team, though, just because it has a decent amount of bulk, but not enough to be a full-fledged tank. Next player we have here is Raksha. His first pick is Lucario. It's not the greatest first pick, I wouldn't say, but it does have the options, which is very important in a draft format, I think. A special sweeper side, and it has a physical sweeper side. Nasty Plot, if you want to go Life Orb. You can run a Scarf. You can run Specs. If you go physical, you can do Band, Scarf, Life Orb, Swords Dance. It has priority moves. It did gain Steel Beam now as well. Nasty Plot plus Steel Beam, or Scarf plus Steel Beam, Specs, Steel Beam. That could be really interesting. Kind of just depends on if he's willing to kind of use it as a Suicide Revenger. If he's setting up, I doubt that he's going to run Steel Beam. It's a very cool attack, so it would be nice to see that at least 1 week. Next up, Raksha has Beartic. Swift Swim is not available in the game yet, so the ability I'm expecting to see probably all the time is going to be the Slush Rush. Now, it's not very fast, so unfortunately you're going to have to invest a lot into the speed for it to be able to outspeed things, even with that double from the ability. Can't really abuse Hail, just because it's not like Rain. It doesn't boost the attacks of Ice-type moves. It has Icicle Crash, which plus Stab, it's going to hit for a massive amount. I believe it has Aqua Jet even. So it has got the priority if it needs it, so you don't even have to have the Hail up. Besides it being a Slush Rush sweeper, though, I'm not seeing it. Gonna have to pick something up there. Next up, Raksha has Lapras, Water Ice type. It's pretty bulky. It's got decent attack and special attack stat, actually. It has Dragon Dance. I'm not sure if it had that before, but it has it now. Mainly, though, I think it's going to be a special attacker / wall. Scald, Ice Beam, Water Absorb as one of its abilities, which will probably be what he brings it most of the time. It's shaping up that the draft is kind of becoming the powerhouse water sweepers. So yeah, Lapras could be a great tank to bring into a fight with somebody that's relying on those. Next up, Raksha has a Bomb Snow as his fourth pick. So we kind of knew that something like this was coming along since he did have the Beartic with the Slush Rush. It's got Snow Warning, so you bring it in, you get the Hail set up, and it now has Aurora Veil. So that is Reflect and Light Screen both in one. So you can run Light Clay to keep that up for longer, Icy Rock if you're wanting the Hail to be up for an extended period of time for the Beartic. It's got great attack and special attack, so you could do the mix set, which was common in the past, although it did gain Leaf Storm and Earth Power this gen. Even having a special or a physical one is not really necessary because you've got Blizzard, Leaf Storm, Earth Power. Not sure past that, but still, those are great coverage. It is 4 times weak to Fire, though, and it doesn't really provide the coverage that his team is looking for so far. So he's going to have to really build something around Slush Rush Beartic if he's wanting to use that. Next up for a 5th pick, Raksha has Blade. So this one is great for the fighting weakness that he was showing before. Ghost type's immune to that. You can bring it in for free. Eviolite. Blade is huge tank on the physical side at least. It might have similar moves to an Aegislash. No King Shield though. Shadow Sneak, Shadow Claw, Iron Head, Close Combat, which is great new attack for it. Past that, I believe it has Swords Dance. It might not even need an Eviolite, but it's definitely an extra boost to make it a great Pokemon. Next up, Raksha has Chandelure. Now this one I think is perfect for his team. It's got the Ghost typing, so it's immune to fighting attacks, and it has the Flash Fire ability, counteracts all of the fire weakness which was shown in his team before. Really great Pokemon. Usually run Scarf or Specs on it. Fire Blast from this thing is insanely hard to deal with. Even if you have something that resisted, it's going to take a big chunk. Yeah, I could see him bring Chandelure like every week. I think that Chandelure plus Lucario is great coverage. Excellent choice. Next up, Raksha has Snorlax as a 7th pick. Snorlax is a tank. Anybody who plays competitive Pokemon knows about Snorlax. There's the thick fat, so it gains the resistance to fire and ice again. I mean, normal type is not the greatest, but doesn't have any weaknesses besides fighting. Very good one. Even a fighting attack, because of Snorlax's bulk, it's probably not going to get one shot. Sets are going to be the Curselax, Curse Recycle with a Healing Berry. Banded, you can try to get him rolling on the Trick Room, although I don't know if that's really an option here. I believe Chandelure might have Trick Room, but that might be besides the point. Got Belly Drum. He's got a wide variety of moves he can use. Snorlax is a very cool pickup here, but again, fighting weakness is something that he has. So if he brings Snorlax, I would expect him to bring Doublade as well as Chandelure. Next up, Raksha has Flygon, Dragon Ground. It gets him that speed tier that he was kind of lacking before. Most notably, it's going to be a Scarfer, maybe a Bander. Yeah, it doesn't have the greatest coverage on moves. It does have First Impression now, so it does have that little bit of priority. It has a good physical attack stat and speed, as we mentioned before. It's got U-turn, so it could be the good setup that he needs to really get the Beartic Slush Rush combo going. Yeah, Flygon's great here. It's weak to Ice, which could be a problem if somebody counters Hail Team by bringing Blizzard. So I would definitely recommend Raksha to look at an opponent's team before deciding on Flygon, or making sure that Flygon can get out of there if he senses like an Ice Beam or Blizzard, Ice Shard, Icicle Spear, all of these things. It looks like pretty much anybody can tech in an Ice Attack, albeit not that great against his team if somebody's using Ice Attacks against him. The 4x weakness is almost nullified by his other Pokemon, which is really a great sign. Next up, Raksha has Hitmontop as his 9th pick. This is a really cool one. It has Intimidate, which we mentioned before. There's not many mons with it in this game, so having a guy with Intimidate is really excellent. He's got good defensive stats. He has a decent physical attack. He has priority in Mach Punch, Bullet Punch too. Rapid Spin, most notably. I believe it is his only spinner on the team. Flygon might have Defog. I'm not 100% sure on that. But this is definitely his only rapid spin. It's going to mainly be bulky, I think. Probably AV. Hitmontop is going to be a good choice to bring. Next up, Raksha has Sneasel as his 10th pick. It's not great. It definitely lost a lot this gen. It doesn't have Pursuit anymore. It doesn't have Knockoff anymore. Really, there's like Icicle Crash and Ice Shard. That's going to be what people think about when Sneasel comes in. Most of the time, it's going to use a Choice Band. It has a good speed tier already, so that is nice. You're not going to bother with an Eviolite. It's not going to tank a hit. Its defenses are so low that if you put an Eviolite on it, it's really just going to be a waste of its potential. That's about it on Sneasel, though. Moving on to Zweifox. His first pick is the Aegislash. Really excellent Pokemon. It got moved down from Ubers. It got its stats changed from 150 down to 140. You can really tell the difference between those 10 bumps. It's not as big of a threat as it used to be. I know a lot of people are going to argue on this, but Aegislash is not as insane as it was. King Shield also got nerfed, so it is now just a 1-stage drop instead of a 2-stage drop like it had been before for attack. Bulky on either side. It can be a special attacker or it can be a physical attacker. Now, most of the times it's going to be max HP and then max either special attack or attack, depending on what you're going with. You can also do a mix of the two, but really it has so many attack options that you don't really have to worry about that much. It got close combat this gen, which is really insane. So it's got the steel coverage, it's got the ghost coverage, and it's got fighting coverage. So not many things switch in on this guy. Really excellent first pick. Doesn't even have to build a team around it. It's such a solid start for a team that I couldn't see not bringing this on every team that he has. Next up, Zweifox chooses Dugtrio as his second pick. Again, Arena Trap. We're allowing here. It's going to be Sash majority of the time. It has a great attack stat. It has a great speed stat. Earthquake, Reversal, Stone Edge, Memento, things like that. Really, he can sack a guy and get in Dugtrio. He can league Dugtrio and stop somebody from really setting up. Bring it in as a revenge killer whenever. Facing Zweifox, you have to think, are your Pokemon threatened by Dugtrio? And if the answer is yes, you should probably put a Shed Shell on him, because Dugtrio is going to be a big impact on the game. Next up is the Hydreigon. Hydreigon plus Aegislash, both of their weaknesses are covered by the other. Aegislash is weak to ground. Bring in Hydreigon. They all have Levitate, so he's not going to be hit by it. Really an awesome combo here. Hydreigon is going to be a special attacker 100% of the time, but your opponent has to guess, is it a Nasty Plot, Life Orb, or is it a Scarfer? That's a scary thing to think about, because if you've got a wall in front of it, do you stay in and tank the hit, or do you fear the Nasty Plot and then you're just getting swept? Really, both options are incredibly viable. It all depends on the rest of what Zweifox decides to do with a team. Next up, Zweifox has the all-popular Corviknight, steel and flying typing. It's very bulky, decent speed. During the Dynamax on Showdown, most people were running Bulk Up, Sub, Roost, and Brave Bird. Now, though, without the Dynamax and stuff, I could see him becoming more of like a defensive Pokemon, so maybe like a U-Turn, Defog, things like that, kind of just to help out the rest of your team. Has the option to Tailwind, although his team so far has a good speed tier, so I wouldn't worry about it too much unless he's worried of something like that Dragapult from Possum coming out. Corviknight's a great option. He's got flying type, so he also is immune to Aegislash's ground weakness. It doesn't have a whole bunch of options, but for what it does do, it's very good at it. Next up, Zweifox chooses Hawlucha. So we don't have the Tapus anymore, which I think is a good thing for the game, because those were on every team. Hawlucha is still a threat, bear in mind, with the Unburden. He has Swords Dance. There's still all of the seeds that he can use with terrains. He has Mold Breaker as another option, although it's not quite as great, but it is there. He's got the Elemental Punches. He's got Acrobatics for when you get rid of your item. You could do something like Power Up Punch, or I think he has Close Combat now, if I had to guess. It's a good Mon. Not my favorite, but it could be good if he has a team that is built around it. Zweifox's sixth choice is Arcanine. As we said before, Intimidate is not very popular, but the players definitely scoped out the Intimidate Mons and made sure to pick them up, because they're such a huge asset to have on a team. Other than that, it can run Flash Fire. I mean, a Choice Banded Flare Blitz from that thing is really hard to deal with, especially if he gets the Flash Fire off. Like, even something that is resisting it, it's going to take at least a fourth of its HP. It's definitely a wall breaker, for sure. Besides that, it has priority and extreme speed. It has great coverage moves, Psychic Fangs, Wild Charge. Really, the sky's the limit for Arcanine. It can do so much. That being said, it's not a setup sweeper, so if you're playing against Zweifox and you think Arcanine is coming, it's either going to be the defensive one with Intimidate, Morning Sun, Will-O-Wisp, or it'll probably be a Choice Band variant with like Flare Blitz, E-Speed, and coverage moves. Something to think about for sure when you're building a team, but it's versatile in those two aspects, so really a great choice. Next up, Zweifox chooses the Pinch Urchin. As we said with the Hawlucha, if you get terrain up, then you can go crazy with it. Pinch Urchin has electric terrain. I believe it sets up spikes and T-spikes. This charge will do a massive amount with stab plus the electric terrain. Not great on the bulk. I think it can probably take at least one hit or so. But yeah, mainly it's there for the electric terrain, so he has that option to do the Hawlucha sweep. For an 8th pick, Zweifox has Piloswine. Really sniped this one out from the low point category With Eviolite, this thing is a really big threat. Thick Fat plus Eviolite makes this thing quite the tank. It has good attack, has good HP, got good defensive stats, Stealth Rock, Ice Shard, Icicle Spear, Icicle Crash, Earthquake, Superpower, things like that. This thing is definitely something to think about. It's, from looking at his team so far, it looks like Piloswine will probably be on the majority on teams, just because it is his only rocker that I see. Really great pickup. For our 9th pick, we have Orbeetle here. It has sticky webs. It's got great bulk. It has a pretty high speed. It has the option for Trick Room, although the rest of Zweifox's team is not set up for that, so wouldn't expect to see any Trick Room. Besides that, it has screens, I believe Calm Mind, so maybe you could set up with it, although it would be a push to get that going. It's going to mainly be support, so yeah, it's an option. Don't think he would bring it quite as often as members that we've seen before. Zweifox's final pick is Shinshino. It has the skill link, which I think is what we would see every time this is brought. Bullet Seed, Tail Slap, Rock Blast, great coverage right there. Also has knockoff. You could do like Scarf, Choice Band. If he really wanted to get cheesy about it, he could go King's Rock. It'll be good for coverage, but besides that, it's definitely not going to be on his core team. Our 8th player here is Baldur. First pick, going right into the weather strat, is Pelipper. Only Pokemon in the game with Drizzle. We know exactly what Baldur is planning to do. Even though you know the strategy, it's going to be hard to break something like that. Pelipper did lose Defog this gen, but he still has Hurricane, Scald, U-Turn, Roost, Knockoff, I believe, Tailwind, things like that. Although Tailwind's not going to be playing too much of a role here just because with the rain you're going to want to get Swift Swimmers. You don't want to waste turns setting up something else there. For second pick, Baldur has Rotom Wash. Excellent option. It has the high speed. It's got good bulk. Excellent typing. It's only weak to grass type, which could ultimately be a problem with rain teams. A lot of them have a grass weakness. If he can work around the weaknesses to grass, then he can probably get something rolling. With a Choice Scarf, this thing is pretty much going to get him to Volt Switch, be punished by ground type, of course, but it's a really great option there. People have to guess if it's going to be Scarf. If I had to assume, it's going to be Scarf most of the time, but it could also be one of the Healing Berry ones with like Will-O-Wisp, Trick, T-Wave, Hex, things like that. Really great. The Hydro Pump by it's going to be boosted by the rain as well, so it's going to hit for a huge amount of damage. Third pick, everybody knew it was coming. Baldur has the Barraskewda. This thing is a massive threat. When you play against Baldur, you have to figure out something to do about Barraskewda. If you can't deal with Barraskewda, you're going to lose. If it's Life Orb, it can switch up its attacks and really take down team. It's got huge speed, got Swift Swim, so it's going to get doubled. I mean, just off the top of my head, I really don't think anything in the game can outspeed Barraskewda in the rain. Besides that, it has a large physical attack as well, so those liquidations coming out of it in the rain are really going to be knocking things down. Past that, it has Ice Fang, Crunch, Psychic Fang, Close Combat, really insane move pool. It's got all the coverage that it needs. The Pelipper plus Barraskewda core, I don't see Baldur bringing a team that doesn't have those two. Next up, Baldur has the Pharaoh Seed. Great option for the team. With an Eviolite, it's a massive wall. It's going to be very hard to break. Especially with the rain, it's going to lower that 4x fire weakness down to a 2x. So it will be able to bulk it out. Plus with the Eviolite, it's really not going to take a massive amount of damage from a non-choiced or set up fire attack. It has Stealth Rocks, Spikes, T-Wave, Knockoff, Toxic, just like Ferrothorn. To be honest though, it will be slightly bulkier than Ferrothorn, but it won't have that consistent recovery that the additional item from like leftovers will provide. If you can wear down the Pharaoh Seed, evade those Leech Sieges as much as possible, it shouldn't be a problem. That being said, it's there to protect the core combo in Pelipper and Barraskewda. Definitely watch out for Ferroseed. If you can break the Ferroseed, you might be able to get into the Barraskewda. But before that, the Ferroseed is going to be a problem. Next up, Baldur has Vikavolt. Pretty great choice. It does have sticky webs this gen, so even if the rain is not up, you can still have that speed control, lowering all your opponent's speed for mons that come in. It is slow itself, so that's something to be a little leery of. The typing is good for his mons that he's chosen so far. Choice specs Thunder from this is gonna hurt really bad. If it's really hard to say, but you want to bring a ground type against the rain team. It's like attacking from two different angles, and that kind of mind control is definitely going to be a problem. Past Thunder, though, it does have Bug Buzz, has Volt Switch, has Energy Ball, and it has a couple of other coverage moves. Great pick, I think. Next up, Baldur also gets the Seismitoad. He really got his free reign of Swift Swim Sweepers that he wanted. So with that, he can do the physical variant, like Liquidation, Earthquake, might have Power Whip, but on the flip side, it could also be Water Absorb tank with Scald, Earthquake, Toxic, Stealth Rocks. I think the new set that's kind of emerged this gen is the Swift Swim Special Sweeper with Earth Power, Hydro Pump, Surf, things like that, then 2 other coverage moves. Very versatile. It's going to be kind of hard even looking at the screen select with the 6 mons up. Is the Seismitoad going to be a tank or is it going to be a sweeper? And until you see it go for a move, I think it's going to be up in the air most of the time. Next up, Baldur has the Claydol as a 7th pick. Not great with the water weakness for a rain team, because your opponent's going to try to abuse that as much as they can. Claydol does have the option for Rapid Spin. It also has the Stealth Rocks. It's got Earth Power, Psychic, and it has Trick Room, but I kind of doubt it with a team like Rain. I mean, it's going to be a tank pretty much all the time. Its weaknesses are very bad for him, which is a little bit disappointing. That being said, if he just sticks with those first 6 and doesn't even worry about using like Rapid Spin or Defog, then he should be fine because his mons are not necessarily weak to those. As an 8th pick, Baldur has Drift Blim. So this is going to be a bulky defogger. I think that Drift Blim will not be brought very often. It is ghost and flying typing. Yeah, not great for the team. Maybe if you want to bring it in to bulk out a grass attack, if somebody's taking that against you, then it could be good. But its defenses are bad. Its attack stats are bad. So Unburden is probably not going to be the way to go just because you're not going to be able to get anything rolling with it. Besides that, though, it does have Strength Zap. It does have Will-O-Wisp. So the recovery is there for it. For a 9th pick, Baldur has Scorch, new one from this game. I mean, it's got Flash Fire. That's not really that necessary with his team, although if he's really trying to protect that Ferroseed, I could see the Flash Fire Scorch coming out, kind of just being a pseudo wall for just that Pokemon. It will die to a water attack, though, so that's something to be leery of. With Heavy Duty Boots, you can avoid the 4x weakness to the Stealth Rocks. It has a great move pool, actually. It's got Knock Off, Leech Life. Its signature move is Fire Lash, I believe. It's a fire-type physical attack, which will drop your opponent's defense by 1 stage. It's kind of just like the Appleton's Apple Acid, how you can just keep spamming it and force a switch out. It's a cool pick. Don't know that he'll bring it very often, but it's definitely a cool one to look out for. For a 10th pick, Baldur has chosen Hitmonlee. So this is an additional rapid spinner if he wants. But I think most notably, it can be an unburdened sweeper. If he does something that can abuse like a normal gym, or if he can abuse a berry, or something of that sort, he can really get something going because it does have a large speed and attack stat. So it almost acts as a secondary option if something happens to the Barraskewda or the Pelipper not being able to set up rain anymore. Do people really have to think about it when they're building a team? Maybe not, but it does have good coverage, so I could see it coming in every now and again. Alright, and our final player here is Slirty. First pick, Galarian Darmanitan. Talk about a threat. This guy really and truly is hard to play around. If he just leads it, your opponent has to guess, is he going for Icicle Crash? Is he going for Blare Blitz? Is he just going to U-turn? Does he have the super power coverage, earth power coverage? one of his other coverage moves? Or is he the Zen mode belly drum Salak Berry setup? I mean, either one of those will sweep. Great revenge killer with a choice scarf. Insanely scary to be in front of when it has a choice band. And the thing about that is that you won't know if it has a choice band. Like, even if you're switching out on turn 1 and he goes for like a U-turn or something, you can probably calc the damage and figure that out from there. But yeah, it's a massive threat, and it's insanely scary to have that be a lead against you, unless you have something that's dedicated to fighting it. Next up, Slirty has the Haxorus. This one's great. It can be a Dragon Dance sweeper, it can be a Swords Dance sweeper, it can be a choice band, has the highest attack stat in the game, so those outrages are really going to hurt. So if he can spot that an opponent doesn't have a fairy type or a defensive steel type, something along those lines, he can click the choice banded outrage and things are going to die. Past that, normally you run like a Lumberry just to get rid of the confusion, or if somebody tries to burn you, or a choice scarf to be a revenge killer. Coverage moves, outrage, as we mentioned before, has earthquake. It might have elemental punches, not entirely sure on that. It does have poison jab, so if you predict the fairy coming in, then you could hit it with that and definitely deal a massive amount of damage. Past that, it almost fills the same role as Darmanitan, although I could see these two really being like buddies. Like, lead with Darmanitan, your opponent sends in something to tank the hit from Darmanitan, but you U-turn out and you bring in Haxorus, and now your opponent has to switch out again. So it could really be a great combo to use together. Next up, he has chosen the Cloyster. Anybody in competitive will know about Cloyster's Shell Smash, White Herb, or even like a Focus Sash, something like that. It's a real scary mon. Once it has those boosts to the stats, it's going to be outspeeding pretty much everything. It's going to be hitting like a truck, especially with that Skill Link and Icicle Spear. Coverage of Liquidation, Ice Shard, Rock Blast, and it can also be a pseudo tank, Spikes, or Toxic Spikes. Really interesting mon. I like it here. Next up, Slirty has chosen Sylveon as his 4th pick. I mean, you're going to use the hidden ability for sure, Pixelate. So you're going to make Hyper Voice into the fairy attack, get the stab bonus. Goes through subs, which is pretty notable in this kind of meta. People are trying to have a setup mon sweep. Sylveon can come in and take it down as long as it doesn't die first. Past that, it has Wish, it has Mystical Fire, so it has good coverage there. You can run the Throat Spray, Calm Mind, you can do Specs, you can do Leftovers. It's going to be hard to think about. Not so much once you see the team preview, because you can kind of gather from there what the Sylveon is. But when you're thinking about what team Slirty is going to bring, you have to think about what kind of Sylveon are you going to be facing. Next up, he has chosen Rhydon as a 5th pick. With Eviolite, it's definitely a tank. Stealth Rocks, Swords Dance, Rock Blast, and Earthquake, I think, is its most notable set. Besides that, it does have the elemental punches, so thing to be aware of. The only bad part of Rhydon, I believe 4 times weaknesses. I believe it's weak to grass and water by 4 times. None of its abilities do anything. So it has Lightning Rod, which means that it's immune to electric attacks and a boosted special attack. It doesn't have a good special attack anyway, so that's not going to do anything, and it's already immune to electric from the ground typing. It has, I believe, Reckless and one other ability that has to do with recoil, but its only recoil move is Takedown. So a little disappointing there, but I think it's a good choice for his team. It's got the fire resistance, which it looked like he was, well, I guess he wasn't too weak to it, but definitely having a tank great here. Next up, Slirty has chosen Braviary as a 6th pick. This one has the option to go for a Defog. It can be the bulk up variant. It has Defiant, which is great if you have an opponent that has one of the Intimidate mons. I would definitely use the Defiant type, or even if your opponent brings one of the Parting Shot mons, then Braviary could be a pretty easy switch in there. Past that, it has U-Turn, it has Tailwind, it has Close Combat now, as well as Brave Bird. It did lose Roost, which I think is very notable, because you can't do the set which had been before, like Sub, Bulk Up, Brave Bird, Roost. That's out of the picture now. So to kind of change that up, maybe you just use it as a kind of support mon. Maybe it's like a fast like Defogger Or even do you just try to go with the bulk up? Maybe do like bulk up sub, Brave Bird, close combat. Should work out pretty well. For 7th pick, we have Espeon. Has magic bounce, which is great. It's not going to set up most of the time, so it's a little less good than Hatterene in that respect. But it is very fast, and it does have a 130 base special attack. So with that, it means that you can put a Specs on it. You can put a Scarf on it. It has screens, so you can do like a Light Clay type. Psychic typing is not terrible. Definitely be aware of knockoff, because it's looking like his team is not loving to take a knockoff with the Darmanitan, Cloyster's White Herb, with Rhydon's Eviolite, and then Espeon being weak to Dark. Very cool pick. You can trick, really just neuter a wall right there, especially if you're running like a Choice Specs. Could be a great threat. Next up, for a low pointer, Slirty has chosen Dottler. Just like Zweifox's Orbeetle pick, it does have screens. It does have sticky webs. It's not going to be able to threaten anything. It doesn't really have the attacks, so I think that the normal set is going to be something like sticky web, light screen, reflect, and like recover or U-turn, something like that. The unfortunate part is that since it is an unevolved Pokemon and its stats aren't great, you're going to be running Eviolite. So you can't really abuse the screens as much as you would like because you can't run Light Clay. I mean, the option is there, but I think Eviolite's going to do this thing better. Next up, we have Eldegoss as the 9th pick. A really great mon. Has Regenerator, Leech Seed, Rapid Spin, has all of the Spore attacks. Not actual Spore, but it has Sleep Powder, has Stun Spore, things of that nature. Great Wall. It's got like Giga Drain. It doesn't have too many sets. It's mainly going to be like a Cleric with Aromatherapy or just the Wall to deal with all of the water types that are running around. And last but not least, Slirty has chosen Jellicent as his 10th pick. This one's great. As we mentioned before, water types are taking over. Jellicent is bulky. It has Water Absorb. It's water and ghost typing, so you can block the rapid spins. It has good special attack even too, so if you want to do something with that, it could definitely be interesting. I believe that the common set that we're going to see is Will-O-Wisp, Strength Sap, Hex, and Scald. And then either specially or physically defensive, based on what his team's looking like. So yeah, I think that it's good. I think he's going to use it quite a bit. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this video here. Hope you all enjoyed, and be on the lookout for more League videos to come out. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications for when we got some more videos coming out.